If I don't rule the world, who does? I rule my world. My world is exactly as I say it is. My life is exactly as I say it is. At least my experience is exactly as I say my life is. And that's, I think, important to pay attention to. I rule my world. Congratulations, you rule your world. You rule it. And so what I like to start with is, in ruling my world, is the realization of oneness, the realization that of good, not goodness, but good. And I've told you, so many of you before, when I go to Boys and Girls Village each week, we start by sitting in a, well, it's not kind of a circle, but I say, this circle is good, and I'm good in this circle. And so let's say that together. This circle is good, and I am good in this circle. So the logical conclusion then when I say to each one is, what are you? You know, what are you?
I'm good in this circle.
Yeah, or I'm good.
I'm good.
Just good. So Chuck, what are you?
I'm great.
But are you good? Yeah, we're not being fancy here. We're not talking about how you feel. We're talking about what you are. And there is a difference. Great is based on an opinion. Good is based on what is. It's based on the reflection, how I am the mirror of God, and God is good, so therefore I am good. Christine, what are you?
Good.
How about you? How about you?
Good.
How about you? All good.
Good.
How about you?
Good.
Good.
All good.
How about you?
Good.
How about you?
Good.
How about you?
Good.
How about you?
Good. I'm good.
Lee?
I'm good.
Okay, good. How about you?
I'm good.
You what?
I'm an 8 week.
Oh, okay.
I am good.
How about you? How about you? How about you, Tanya? There we go. I am good. It's just what I am. Isn't that nice? I am made in the image and likeness of God. I believe that God is innately good, cannot be anything other than what God is. God is good. Therefore, I can't be other than what God is. I can behave really abominably. I can, I can live in the illusion for a limited amount of time. I can rest assured, though, I'm not going to be eternally in the illusion that there is something missing. Not but temporarily. I may, several times a day, may forget that I'm good. But just because I forget doesn't mean that I am good. It's kind of like forgetting where your keys are. Your keys are still where you left them. You just forgot where you left them. And it's the same with your innate nature. Your innate nature still is what it is. Just because you forgot doesn't mean that it isn't what it is. And so we can rest assured, this is what brought me back to unity over and over and over again. This is why I like praying. This is why I like celebrating God, because I believe what I'm saying here, even though I forget several times a day, mostly in traffic. But I can forget. But this week's, we're on this lovely, what do you call it? Prosperity's 10 Commandments. That's what I wanted to ask. Who all is reading this book? Who all has gotten this book and is taking the time to read it? That's not enough of you. I'm grateful for those of you who are. I really appreciate those of you who are. You need to get this book. Is there anybody here who has issues with their prosperity? There we go. So what's up? We're in the 5th week of a 10-week series. You say you have issues with your prosperity. It's as if you're waiting for prosperity to happen to you. He just sang a song, If I Ruled the World. The deal is, I do rule the world. Prosperity doesn't happen to me. Prosperity is. And if I want to experience it, I need to understand it. I need greater understanding. This wonderful book by Georgiana Tree West was an old Unity writer. This book was written in 1946. And it's on, she took the 10 Commandments and turned them into a prosperity lesson. Now, I had to laugh because I was talking with someone this morning, and he was telling me that his partner may come next week. And that when his partner was asked, his partner never been to Unity, was asked, what do they teach at Unity? And he said, money. What's Unity about? Money. But a lot of people think that. A lot of people think that because, you see, we use money as a great example for spiritual learning, for spiritual knowing, because money scares so many of us. We're really terrified about money. We're terrified of what we think it can do and what we think it's not doing. And that tells me we think money is our source, rather than that God is our source, or our good is our source, and money is something to be played with. Money is something to be appreciated, to be enjoyed, instead of something to cause our good, or something that is currently causing our bad. It isn't about money, but we use money. There are two big things. It used to be, to become a Unity minister, you had to have a physical overcoming, so that you could understand the invisible presence that creates the health within you. And you needed a financial overcoming. Because how can you teach about this stuff if you haven't experienced the healing of it? Now, many teachers I know, they began having their overcoming as they began to teach this stuff. And Edwin set up a lecture series in a downtown office. My teacher, Edwin Gaines, before she was truly what you would call prosperous, but she had her mental overcoming and decided, I am worthy of prosperity. And if I'm worthy of prosperity, then I'm worthy of living within all of the prosperity tools. Because she said, you know what? It's not good enough for this blessed child of God to be poor. It's not good enough to be poor. And if you've been around, and most of us have, we've met people at all different income levels who are poor. And we've met people at all different income levels who are rich. So it's obviously not the amount of money that declares us as rich or poor. It's our ruling of our world that declares us as rich or poor. I want to read this to you. The first week was, thou shalt have looked to no other source but God for your good. The second week was, thou shalt make no mental images of lack. The third week was, you shall not speak the word of lack or limitation. Fourth, you shall let go and let God do it, which we did last week. How's that been working for you? And this week, and it's funny that it falls on Father's Day, because it represents the original commandment, the fifth commandment, which was, thou shalt honor thy mother and thy father. But this says, you shall deal honorably with God and with all human instruments through whom God's good is manifested for you. I like that. I like that a lot. Now, the three of you who have read this chapter,
the rest of you are good.
You're good. You're good. You are so good. You ought to be reading this. Because I'm open to being taught by you what you're interpreting from this. I'm open to hearing your thoughts. Because some of you may be annoyed with this chapter teaches. This chapter is all about tithing. And I know we talked about that with the second week in You Shall Make No Mental Images of Lack. And she read, there was this whole thing. But it's about giving. Now she said, I love this. You don't have, there is one way out of tithing. In this chapter, she's very clear on it. There's a way to escape tithing, and that is to give everything to God. Give it all to God. Now you need to pray on what that means. You really need to go within and pray on what that means to give it all to God. Because otherwise it's going to say, oh my God. I thought somebody saw somebody make an oh my God gesture. It's to freely give, because where do you think it's coming from? Yeah, it's G-O-D. It's coming from an invisible source. Everything is coming from an invisible source. And I cannot emphasize this enough, because we want to completely relinquish that the physical world is the cause of our good. Completely relinquish. Because once you do that, you will no longer be afraid of losing the physical world. You won't be afraid of losing your body. You won't be afraid of losing your life. You won't be afraid of losing your spouse. You won't be afraid of losing this furniture. You won't be afraid of losing your money. You won't be afraid of losing anything, because if the physical world is not the source of your good, then there's nothing to lose. And how could you possibly lose the invisible? How could you possibly lose the invisible source of health, the invisible source of wealth, the invisible source of your body, the invisible source of all of your good and all of the joy that you do experience here? The invisible source. Because you see, it was an idea. It was a divine thought. And you can't see thoughts till they come into manifestation. But you see these chairs here. They were all invisible at one time. All of the chairs in this room were invisible. And they came from a divine idea. And then somebody thought, oh, I could bend metal this way and do this. And there's fabric. And you start to weave and you create. That somebody saw all these chairs in their mind. And then they brought them forth into a physical manifestation. The clothes that you're wearing came forth from an invisible idea. The relationships that you are having started in the invisible. Your body started in the invisible. We were all just a divine idea that came forth through the human body. But, and we came out, we were so tiny, and then we keep expanding and expanding and expanding. Yeah. And it all starts. So what makes you think that what you have is yours to hoard, is yours to use fearfully, is yours to treat as if it is in short supply? Those are misteachings and mislearnings and mispractices that we have been doing. Now, I said a few weeks ago when I talked about tithing, you do not have to tithe to this church. This is not a money-making scheme for Unity Center. It is not, as far as I'm concerned, it's not a money-making scheme for any church. Now, we're not going to kid anybody. There are bills to be paid in a church, but God is the source. If you were fed here, I think it would be great if you gave here your tithe, your time, your talent. There's so much of us. And what you tithe, you will create more of. If you tithe of your time, you'll create more time. You tithe of your talent, you will create more opportunities to show your talent. And if you tithe more of your treasure, you will create more treasure. It's not doing it to get. Because 1/10 of 0 is 0. So obviously, a tithe is based on what we have received. So 1/10 of a dime is a penny. I don't need to do the math, for the simple math for most of you here. You know what I mean. And they said, and they asked, why a 10th? Why a 10th? Well, let me tell you, because she says it in here. Oh, she said it and I forgot. I highlighted it, underlined it, and still I can forget. The number 10 is always the number of increase. Because all numbers represent something. There's a reason why numbers were assigned to things in biblical days. And some of you are numerologists, some of you have been to numerologists. You know that numbers indicate something. But the number 10 is always the number of increase. Mathematically speaking, with each count of 10, we begin a new series of numbers, entering a new cycle of increase. That to me is practical application, practical understanding of how to apply this. But you tithe to where you want to increase, to what you want to honor with your God presence, to what you want to make more of. And that's why my teachers always say, you do not tithe to charity. Give all you want of the other 90% to charity. But you don't want to create more need. And that's why we don't tithe, our 10th off the top to charity. Because we want to put that 10th into the expansion, the increase of the God presence, the increase of the music, the light, the love, and all that is feeding you, feeding your mind, helping you to make new choices. New choices, as I said, to rethink my thoughts so that I'm actively seeking to be in alignment with God. So where do I go? Who are the people that are feeding me in order to make me rethink my thoughts? That I may desire to an even greater level to be in alignment with God. And to be in alignment with God is to remember I am good. That's to be. Because God only sees what God is. God's not seeing our problems. That would not be God dealing honorably with us. G-O-D is not a person who thinks. Let's remember that. We are the thinking being. God just is what God is. And so God can only experience what God is. And that's where we are basically off the hook for all those terrible thoughts we have had and all those awful actions we have taken in the past. All that stuff that we've developed in ourselves to create such self-loathing, such self-hatred, such misbeliefs in order to try to create ourselves as something we are not. In order to make the world our source instead of the effect of our thoughts. And so, as God sees us as only love, I am only love. No, I may be demonstrating love in a rather unpleasant way, but it's still love because it means nobody's intervening to stop me from demonstrating this way or this way or this way. Nobody's intervening. The love that is says, I love you so much. Go ahead and have your experiences. Look at Adam and Eve. God did not stop. Adam, in the story there, God did not stop anybody from eating the fruit of the knowledge of good and evil. Did not stop. But there were results. There were consequences of this knowledge. It's the same way if you are a guest in somebody's home and you go sneaking into their medicine cabinet and you go sneaking into their dresser drawers or their hampers and things. You now have knowledge you wish you didn't have. You may not have been able to stop yourself first, but you now have knowledge. You now have a secret between you and your host. One would think, unless you go to your host and you say, oh, by the way. And then now you have perhaps a conflict between you and your host. Or you're now in a relationship with you and your host. But it's that stuff. The knowledge of good and evil comes with a price. And the price is knowledge. And the price is opinions. And the price is the belief that you are now separate. You're separate from your host. And what's your true host? God. It comes with the belief that you are, if you try to explore what we know to be the opposite of God, what we think is the opposite of God, how can I now think I am one with God when I have this knowledge of ugliness? When I have this knowledge of what I think is separate? I must deal honorably with myself. I must deal honorably with my host. And my host is God and all of the human instruments. that come through God into my life, to deal honorably, to acknowledge, to be able to say, you are good, and 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 you are good, you are good, and you are good, and you are good, and you are good, and you are good. You're good again. You're good. You are good. You are good. You are good. Lee, you're good. You are good. You are good. He has to pay attention to me. You are good. You are good. Stephen, you're good. You're good. Shane, you're good. You're good. You are good. He has to pay attention. You are good. 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 And you are good. I am good. And the only way I can know you're good is if I know I am good. So I must deal honorably. I'm one of the human instruments that comes through God, that comes through good. And I must deal honorably, which means giving freely of the good that I am and the good that I have. Giving freely to create more of this good in my mind. Because you see, if I hoard, I'm acknowledging fear. I'm acknowledging lack. I'm acknowledging the illusion that there is something missing from my life. One must pray on how much one ought to give. One must pray. One must go within. Not to see how little one can give, but how much can I give that I am the steward of the life I want to live? How much could I give back to God to say, not because God will be pleased with me, but so that I will be pleased with God? God's already pleased with me. But how much would it be for me to be pleased with God, to be pleased with myself, and to be pleased with you? So that I could drive down the road without conflict. So that I'm driving alongside my brothers and my sisters. Not who are maniacs, but who are beloved beings. But that I could go to the grocery store with beloved beings. And I could go anywhere with beloved beings. I could fly on airplanes with beloved beings. And I could be checked through at the airport by a beloved being. Both at the ticketing and at security. That it could all be beloved. What would I have to give mentally, emotionally, spiritually, physically, financially? What would I have to give? And that's, if I ruled the world, I would know exactly what to do. Well, congratulations. You rule the world. You rule the world. See, she rules the world. And we're checking in with her to see what needs to be done next. Congratulations. We rule our world. I'm so happy for you.